Dear brothers and sisters, greetings of peace. Raj Yoga Center, in collaboration with Embassy of India, Muscat, is organizing this event on yoga. Raj Yoga Center for Self-Development aims to assist people to develop personal values and inner resources such as tranquility, wisdom, and courage, and to promote universal values in areas such as peace building, women's empowerment, health and well being, education, and environmental sustainability. Rajoga Center takes part in a variety of events and projects in cooperation with community organizations, UN agencies, and government ministries. All activities are provided free of charge as a service to the community. The details about these courses are given in our website. There is child within everyone. It needs to be discovered to remain happy and carefree. To share wisdom, we have Ken O'Donnell from Brazil. He is the coordinator of more than 30 branches of Brahmakumaris in South America. By profession, he is an international consultant in strategy and leadership for many companies, academic institutions, and governments. Living and working extensively on 5 continents has given him the skill to help and motivate others with his practical knowledge of cross-culture experience. He also written best-selling business books in Portuguese and Spanish, and many books on spiritual and personal development. I hope with this small intro, it gives you an idea about the experience, expertise, and dynamic personality he is. Now, I request Ken to share his wisdom with us. Ken, over to you.
Thanks, Gayatri. It's lovely to be with you all on this special occasion. And we are so happy that the government of India has taken the initiative of creating International Yoga Day together with the UN. And so brilliant initiative because yoga has played and is playing such an important role for people at this time. Of course, the type of yoga most known to people is Hatha Yoga, which is extremely beneficial for the physical health. And of course, in these days when we need to boost our immune system, Hatha Yoga is a fantastic resource that we can all take benefit from. But even Hatha Yoga, when it was first introduced, was more of as a step, a preliminary step to spiritual development. It wasn't just that you had to do some exercises, but those exercises prepared you to be able to meditate. Well, that was the idea anyway. And even in those earlier times, the ancient sages of India, they were very wise in understanding that people are different. Some people are more reflexive, more reflective, more studious. They like to study things more. And so there was this idea that one of the branches of yoga should be Jnana Yoga or Gyan Yoga, so that you could develop this connection with the divine through the study of ancient texts and so on. And of course, the divine yoga actually means that connection, the connection between the self and the divine, however you see that divine source. And then other people are not so reflective or erudite, or they don't like to go into the study of things very much. They're very loving people. In fact, most human beings are more of a loveful type. And so there was this idea that you could do bhakti yoga as well, that bhakti means the devotion, that you could approach the divine, you could approach this connection through just love from the heart. Others are more practical, and so they could approach that divine, make this connection, this yoga, through their works, through their, offering what they ever did to the divine. And so there came up the idea of karma yoga. And then there was Raja Yoga, where these are the four classical lines of yoga. And the type of Raja Yoga, and I know that many of you already know these things, that the world most knows about, was developed about 200 years before Christ by a sage called Patanjali. And he proposed Ashtanga Yoga with the 8 steps. But even in that, the yoga that he was talking about, within that, he proposed the asanas of the Hatha Yoga and also the breathing exercises. And of course, it really, Raja means sovereign. So it's the connection that makes you into a sovereign. There's some self-control. And it's not easy. And if we're talking about, discovering the inner child, this last one does require some discipline. And though we do offer courses for children, and of course they can do the basics of meditation, but the real depth requires a very skillful understanding of things. So I'd like to talk about, in this context, what does it mean to, this self-development? What is it? There are actually two inner children, two types of inner child. Two types of inner child. One is the inner child, which is the one that is, we were all young kids once, right? And so our needs, we all spent several years in the beginning of this life as young children who were needful. They couldn't look after themselves until they were more grown up. They had their hurts and their pains and their playfulness. And so we all have that within us. It is recorded in us, our infancy. Even the word infant, it comes from Latin. It means someone who doesn't speak. Infant means to speak. So infant means someone who shuts up, someone who's quiet, doesn't have anything to say. And so that's why also you have the same word in infantry, like the soul. Anyway, the infancy of this life, though we remember it very fondly if we had a good experience, but if we didn't have a good experience, let's say our parents were just fighting all the time, or even if they separated, these sorts of experiences created traumas in us. And these traumas, of course, later on, there's a whole area of psychotherapy which believes that a lot of the problems that we carry as adults are due to things that happened to us when we were kids, or even happened to us when we were in the womb of the mother. Something happened, some very stressful situation that the mother was passing through. And so they try to find out, if we understand what exactly happened, what the hurt was, where it came from, what the trauma was caused by, then that will help us to process it in our adult life. At least that's the idea. But that's not the only infant in us. That's not the only silent one in us. That's not the only inner child, the one that was recorded over a period of, say, let's say 10 years maybe. And then we started to give it, I think 11 maybe, because when we offer courses for children here in Brazil, it's for kids between 7 and 11, because after that they start to go into their teens and they're not interested much. But this inner child, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later on, this is the actual core of us. We have a core which is pure and innocent as a child. But because there's so much stuff built over the top of that, we forget it. We forget that there is within us at this very moment, all of us, this inner core of peace and purity. Because there's so much other stuff going on, especially at this time, in our lives. There's so many worries and so much anxiety and so many concerns, immediate concerns. People are losing their jobs. I'm speaking to you from Brazil, where the situation, the public health situation, absolutely chaotic, and the economic situation is absolutely grim, because it's a poor country and they don't really have the infrastructure. So where Brazil has moved up to second place after the United States in numbers of cases and numbers of deaths due to the coronavirus. But there's a lot of things that are happening around us which are playing on us, that we become concerned and worried. Anxiety is growing, because the worry is growing, because the uncertainty is growing. All of those things together put people into a state of panic, really. There's a lot of people in a state of panic, especially in a state of fear as well. So we're so concerned about what's going on, and where everyone's looking up the news and they're seeing all sorts of horrible scenes on the television, and they're looking up on YouTube all sorts of theories about what it is and what it's not. People, I work with business people, and they're all very concerned because even though they're coming out of this, there probably will be a time in Brazil, and it's already happening in other countries, when the lockdown is reduced, but then they expect a second wave. And so the economic impact of this on humanity is huge. It's the worst thing since the Great Depression. Actually, later on in history will be called the Great Lockdown, just as we call the Great Depression of 1929. Anyway, these things are going on, and we're moving away from this inner core of strength and stability and purity and peace because of these concerns. It's pretty natural. People are losing jobs. I know that in Oman, there's a lot of people who come from other countries to work in Oman. And of course, because the business is going down, they're also having to go back, and it's not easy to go back, and huge choices in people's lives at the moment. I don't know if it's happening there, but certainly here, because people are locked down and they're with their families mainly. Domestic violence has also gone up 20%. Homicides at home, because husband and wife who were happy to spend a long part of each day away from each other now together. And so there's a lot of fighting and all sorts of problems that you can imagine. On the other side, we can cultivate this inner child. We can cultivate our inner state, our deep core of good things. But that does require another choice. At the moment that we do have, I always think that instead of saying what bad things are coming, what are the good things that this situation is giving us? As far as I can understand, I feel that I've received 4 presents because of this whole change of the way things are. The first is we have a chance to work on those things in ourselves that we need and we require to sort out. So we've got time for ourselves, and we've got quality time for ourselves if we want it. Most people here anyway are working from home, and so they don't need the daily commute. In Sao Paulo, where I live, Sao Paulo is a huge city. It's 22 million people, huge. And there's more than many countries in one city. And so there are 8-9 million cars in the city. So you can imagine how people, I don't need to go to work. So I'm not going to spend 3 hours every day in the traffic, which is pretty average in Sao Paulo, 3 hours a day in the traffic. So they've suddenly gained 3 hours a day, the people working from home. And how can I use that time in the best possible way? Besides, keeping fit, and I think another thing that's going up for people is their weight is going up because they're sitting at home doing nothing, just eating. But the situation that it's like a present that I have some time to work on myself. I have some time to go in and to cultivate this purity and innocence which resides in me, with this inner state of peace that is actually at my core. I have some time to work on it. The Greeks have two gods of time. One's called Kronos, whom we all know. Kronos, the physical time, watch, chronology, chronograms. Kronos was the Greek god of quantity time. But they also had a god called Kairos, which is quality time. That means 1 minute of very deep experience in meditation, for example, is it's more than 24 hours of just running around. So quantity time and quality time. So I've got the present of some quality time if I want it. Second thing that I should consider as a good gift. Most of us are with those people who are closest to us. In the lockdown anyway, here, people are with their families mainly. And so they're put together. And so there's a time when, especially if people lose job, families are the backbone for most people. If you lose everything and you still have a family, the families mostly, they try to help out if they can. So I have a chance now, if I want, to really improve my relationships with those who are closest to me, if I want to do that. If I'm not with my family, at least I'm keeping contact with some close friends. In our meditation schools, there are residents, and so they're also in lockdown. They're with each other. And so it's also a chance for all of our people to sort out any relationships, if there's anything to forgive, if there's anything to, if I really need to start to develop my vision of the positive qualities of others, this is the time to do it. The third present that I'm getting from this time, and I'm seeing that a lot of people, I've talked to them, is simplicity. Because our choices have become more simple. A lot of the foods that we used to like are not available, for example. So our choices are more simple. People, at least here in many countries, there are all restaurants and clubs and pubs are closed. And so you can't go out for dinner, basically, at least now. Probably it will start opening up soon. So at least for 2 months, people have had to make their own food. So the choices of what you're going to make, and it's really, if you want, it's a great chance to become creative in the kitchen and choose the simplest ingredients to make good things. So simplicity in terms of our choices. You can't go to the hairdresser, you can't go to so you have to cut your own hair, for example. But those sorts of things we're not used to, we suddenly have been thrust upon us. And the fourth thing that I think is probably the best thing for me anyway, is silence. Now, if I want to develop a connection, yoga, with that inner child in me, that silent, peaceful, pure being which is at my core, obviously I need silence to do that. To get in touch with my own deep silence, I have to be quiet verbally. I have to be, I have to cultivate silence. So it's a chance also to if I'm going to open my mouth, let what I say have some meaning, not just speak for the sake of speaking. So it's a chance to check our relationship with silence. And that's probably where, if you go back to the origins of yoga, that's what you would see. They would go out to the forest in silence. They would sit for hours and days or months sometimes, reflecting on the deep inner nature of the soul and the divine, the relationship with matter. And of course, they were able to come to very, very deep conclusions, to the extent that they developed this whole system, this whole science of yoga, which has different aspects to it. For us who practice Raj Yoga, it's the Raj Yoga that we developed. It was developed through the medium of Prajapita Brahma, who is the founder of Brahma Kumaris. And for us, the foundation, in the same way of Ashtanga Yoga, you have the yama and niyama, the things that you have to abstain from, and the things that you have to cultivate and observe. So this ethical and moral foundation is the basis of our spiritual life, in a way. So it's like not committing violence. It's about not stealing. It's about not lying. It's about truthfulness. It's about, cleanliness. All of these code of conduct are very, very important if we want to go progress in our spiritual life, in our meditation, and become that self-sovereign, the Raja, through yoga, Raja Yoga. And then for us, it's not the pranayam, which is like the respiratory exercises, the respiration, though it's very, very beneficial, and we all need to learn to breathe properly. The Chinese say that when you are born, you have an exact number of breaths already determined. So the best thing to do, if you've got an exact number of breaths, then the best thing to do is to breathe slowly, right? So not breathe fast, and then you finish your quota of breaths. But pranayam also means prana is the vital force in our lives. It's the life that runs through us. It's not the physical blood, but it's the subtle vital force which keeps us moving and going, keeps us moving. And so for us, it's not so much a question of breathing exercises, but just becoming conscious of this spiritual being that I am, and becoming centered. And so we're going to do an exercise in a bit about just exactly to do that, to become centered. If I become conscious of this spiritual being that I am, the soul, and I become centered, no matter what's going on around me, in the same way that I'm sitting on a physical seat, I sit on a mental seat just behind here. And at that very instant, my prana starts to flow nicely. And so it's a different sort of experience. It's a control of prana, not through breathing, but through consciousness. For us also, the asanas, and even though Patanjali codified very nicely, and for each of the postures he gave the name of something from nature, like a lotus flower or a lion or a snake, all of the different postures, Padmasana, Savasana, Singgasana, all of these different postures of the body, actually, for us, they're postures of the soul, postures of the consciousness. So it's not just sitting your body with one foot over your knee and the other foot over the other knee, like in the lotus posture. But it's to live like a lotus flower. That's the way we approach it, that my life should be like a lotus. And the lotus flower is such a beautiful flower. It lives in the mud. but the dirty water doesn't penetrate the petals. It's just so radiant and so beautiful, even though it's growing in the mud. So it's a symbol of being in this world, not abandoning this world, but being in this world and not being affected by all the dirtiness around us. And so in the same way, the Singgasana is not just becoming like a lion physically, but it's to have the courage like a lion. So for us, all of the different postures that we need to face our lives, we need an inner flexibility to do that. And in the same way, this is why I started to think about this in a child, in the same way that a young child can easily do these postures of Hatha Yoga. You know, they've got such flexible limbs that they can put one leg behind their head if they work on it. When you're a little bit older, you can't do that, right? Very difficult, unless you've trained your whole life. But in the same way that a young child is flexible in order to do those physical postures, I need inner flexibility like a child, an inner flexibility to be able to face situations in the best manner. You know, the situation requires courage, and let me be flexible enough to produce enough courage to face that. The situation requires detachment, so let me be flexible enough to put myself in that lotus posture internally, so that I can, you know, be okay with the situation, loving and detached, beautiful and detached. So we understand like that, and then of course, with those four things, you know, the yama and yama, which are the things that we abstain from, the things that we practice consciously, the soul conscious automatic control of prana, and the inner postures according to the situations. If I'm living like that, I can easily meditate, which are the four final steps of Patanjali's system, and also what we believe. We need to have the ability to withdraw. The pratyahara, it's called. We need to be able to withdraw from three things, actually. To withdraw from our senses and their objects, you know, that I go within and I become completely detached from. I can see things, but I'm not attached to them. I can hear things, but I'm not attached to what I'm hearing. So I can do that. I withdraw from the senses and their objects. I have to also withdraw from all of the roles that I have, which is a bit more complicated. So I am the soul and not the body. I am the actor and not the roles that I have. So whatever role I have professionally or family-wise, I'm not that. It's what I'm doing, but I'm not it's not what I am. It's not what I am. A doctor is a doctor while he's being a doctor. Then he's studying to be, and then he's an ex-doctor, let's say. So my profession is something that I have for a certain period of time. Even if I'm a father, it's also for a limited amount of time. I can stop being a father in the moment that my child unfortunately may die, you know. I stop being a husband if there's a divorce. You know, those roles are somehow more temporary, but what I am, that doesn't change. So I have to retain a sense of what I really am while all of these roles change. And so the ability to go beyond the different roles in the consciousness that I'm the actor. And the third thing that I have to detach from is my own story, because there's a whole lot of things that I carry in my head about what happened and what didn't happen and who said what and who did what. All of the images that I have of people and my own imagination, my interpretations of everything. The story that I carry in my head has been very subjective. You know, it's not probably wasn't really as I think it was, whatever I went through. So I just need to go beyond my story, and that's the first. And so the first step of meditation is to go beyond. And then, for us in Brahma Kumaris, the next step of meditation, which Patanjali called dharana, it's about concentration, and it's actually concentrating our thinking. And the object of our concentration, in fact, is the divine, the source, the one who is remembered by all religious traditions. So if I connect up, and that's the real sense of yoga, having that connection with the divine, I connect up, and then I can start to have some sort of an interaction with the divine. And this is like, the concentration. It's the same way that if you have a plant on your, a flower vase on your table, and you're just looking at it. Let's say that's the object of your vision. But in fact, you don't have to produce the flowers. They are already there. You just have to keep your mind on them. In the same way, we just keep our mind concentrated on that wonderful source, the divine, and then we start to experience something very nice. And then the third step of this meditation would be what Patanjali called dhyana. And dhyana is like, that translated exactly means meditation. Funnily, it's the word dhyana is, if you translate that into Japanese, the word becomes Zen. So this means meditation. So I just, when that concentration becomes stable and uninterrupted, constant, then I can say that I'm really meditating. That's the real yoga, unbroken connection. And then the last step that Patanjali called samadhi was, we understand that I become the embodiment of some quality. So in this case, for example, if I'm in search of this inner child, then that inner child has qualities. I am a being of peace, for example. I am a being of love. I am a being of truth and purity. These are my innate, deep, core qualities, the inner child that I'm calling. And so in the last step of meditation, I become the quality. I'm not thinking about peace anymore. I am peace. I'm not thinking about, purity and innocence anymore. I am that. It's different from saying I'm a loveful being, I'm a loveful being, I'm a love. You can repeat that, 100 times, but it's not the same as really experiencing that love. So for us, meditation, it does require some understanding and practice, obviously, some depth and discipline. In fact, we learn in our lives when we were kids, we learned to speak, and how happy were our parents when we spoke our first words, like mama, baba, How happy did our parents become when I started to say something? So we learned to speak. And of course, our mother especially was teaching us words. This is this thing, this is that thing. And then, we learned also how to count 1 + 1 = 2. We learned how to say numbers. And so we learned lots of things when we were kids. So we learned how to speak. We learned how to count. We learned how to walk. We learned how to sing, maybe. We learned how to dance, maybe. We learned how to ride a bicycle. We learned how so many things, but we never learned how to think, because our parents or our teachers also hadn't learned how to think. So how can I think? Do I need to just think the way that I am? Do I need to get through a day with so many thoughts? Probably not. I was doing some work a few years ago was the year of the World Cup of football in Brazil, 2014. And 6 months before the matches started, I was working with the airport authority in Brazil. And of course, they had to develop 10 airports where the matches were going to happen in 10 different cities. So they had to bring all of these airports up to a very good level to receive so many millions of people. And so they were all completely stressed because there was only one airport ready 6 months before. The other 9 were still under preparation. And so they were completely stressed. And I asked them, what's the busiest airport? And they said the name of one city. This is in the peak hours, there's a flight every 90 seconds or every 2 minutes or something. I said, what about the airport of the mind? There's something coming in and something going out every second, maybe. There's something coming in, going out. It's so busy. And if we administered our airports in the same way we administered our minds, how would they be? And they said, oh, it would be a mess, right? So this was a very interesting thing. And so I made a quick calculation. If you have something happening in your mind every second, and you're awake for 1,000 minutes in a day, there are 1,440 minutes in 24 hours. So let's say 1,000 minutes you're awake, and there's something happening in your mind every second. That's 60,000 things. If you've got a more fractured mind, a lot of things going on, you can have something happening every half second. It's 120,000 things in one day. And of course, that's why we get exhausted and tired. We think too much. So we need to learn to think less, and we need to think better. So the object of meditation is exactly that. Think less and think better. As I said, we do have these courses in Brazil for kids between 7 and 11, because before 7, it's a little bit difficult for them to manage them. And after 12, they're already thinking about other things, boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff. So we concentrate on that group, because we know when we give these lessons to adults, they say, oh, this would have been so great if somebody told me this when I was a kid. When there's still that impressionable age, think something like 80% of everything we were ever going to be are formed when we are kids, and the rest is like a program that's repeated. So why didn't we learn this when we were kids, they ask. And so we are very conscious that we could help the kids more. And of course, the language that I'm speaking in this talk, we have to absolutely modify to make it easier to understand. But it's possible using fun and games and images and so on. It's absolutely possible to teach kids meditation. The most difficult thing, of course, to teach kids is to get them to sit still, because you need that if you want to meditate. But you can get around that. I mean, I'm not an expert in teaching young kids, but they say that it's possible to keep kids' attention in a nice way, that they can learn something about meditation. Anyway, these are some of the thoughts that I was having. And I know that everyone's going through a lot of mental unease at the moment because of the situation. Is it possible to help people really? Is it possible to help those who are around us who have panic and are in fear? Mostly people are worried about their jobs. And some people are worried about how's it going to be when things get back to normal. I really feel that nothing's going to be like it was before this pandemic. Nothing will become like it was before the pandemic. So we definitely need to have the power to adjust. And meditation helps us to be extremely flexible, as I was saying before, to produce the right postures that our life requires. We need to be firm. We need to be strong. We need to be courageous. We need to be more peaceful. We need to be more patient and so on, and more tolerant, and more have a broader vision of things, and more acceptance and understanding, less focused on defects and problems, a simpler perspective on life. We need those things, and through meditation we can do that. So I'm going to conduct a meditation, and then if there's any questions, we can spend the last 10 minutes doing that. Okay, is that all right, Gayatri?
Yes, we will just do some meditation.
Okay, so I request everyone to, you're probably all sitting comfortably anyway, but don't slouch. Don't need to keep your back absolutely rigid. If you remember the pictures and the statues of yogis from the past, just remember how their faces looked, very calm. Even the eyes were not completely closed. The eyes were sort of semi-open. So keep your eyes half open and unfocused. You don't need to focus on anything. In fact, the attention should be within. And the first step is, like, as I said before, becoming, withdrawing, becoming detached. So I can do this, first of all, by becoming very aware of the moment. What's going on around me here? What's happening around me? What can I hear? Are there any sounds, in the street or around us? In your house or apartment? You can feel your own breathing. Just observe, the air coming in, the air going out. So you can feel the temperature. If you're lucky, you can even feel your heartbeat. So just become aware of the way your senses are operating. And go into that situation where you are actually in command of them. So in the same way that you're sitting on your physical seat, there's a subtle seat behind the middle of the forehead, in between the two sides of the brain, which is actually the headquarters of your consciousness. So sit there mentally and see that you can actually command each one of your sense organs just by, you're not fighting against them, you're just allowing them to operate, and you're not really controlling them, you're just allowing everything to become centered. And you have the sense of command. So in the same way, if you look at your different roles in your life, your role in the family, you are the daughter of someone, or the son of someone, the brother of someone, sister of someone, husband of someone, wife of someone, mother or father of someone. So think about your different roles. And again, I am the actor. Think like that. I am the actor, and these are my roles. So let me just feel that sense of command again. The third one, everything that's happened in my past is part of my story, but it really doesn't exist anymore, except in the way that it's impacted me. I can't bring back any scene of the past, even from a few seconds ago. So I can become detached from my story just by remembering that past is past. And I'm in the present moment, and the future's ahead of me. So let me create a different story, better story. So by being centered and calm, I have a chance to experience my different qualities. This inner child that I was talking about. So I am this being of peace. In the very depth of me, in my core, I am peace. I am loveful. I am content. And on the screen of my mind, I picture I picture the divine source, like a sun, maybe, just radiating qualities. And mentally, I'm connecting up. I'm having that yoga with the divine, just absorbing those qualities more and more. I remain in this consciousness, very light. I'm away from. It's not that I've run away from anything or I'm ignoring anything. I'm just observing things. I'm observing my body. I'm observing my roles. I'm observing my story. And I'm trying to just soak up the vibrations of this connection, this yoga. So I remain a few more moments in this state, and I come back, slowly, I come back to the normality of the room where I'm sitting, and I can open my eyes a bit more now, and I can keep a little bit more of this consciousness with my eyes open. And here we are. So if anyone has any question, they can probably put them on the chat, and I can see if I can help in any way.
Yes, Brother Kim, one question, like being a consultant, what you suggest to the people in this uncertainty to get along, like, or to remain positive?
Yeah, it's not easy. I think the leadership skills that we need at this time, we have to think about our workforce. We have to think about the safety of our people as well. If you're starting to come out of lockdown, then of course there's a lot of protocols to follow. But if you're a leader type, if you have a business, and the best thing you can do is to become calm and stable. I'm saying this because if you are also confused and the situation around us is so confused, my confusion will not help me. So I can't do much about the confusion outside or the way that the country is or the way that people are, but I can control myself. And I always think that if I really make an effort to improve my relationship with myself, and I really start to say practice meditation, my own mind will become much clearer, and I'll see the possibilities much more clearly. If I open my mind, I will see more, and if I see more, I'll understand more, and if I understand more, I can decide better. Because every case is a case in itself, right? I don't have any idea how it is affecting there, but what I'm telling people, there are some very definite lessons for us to learn in all of this story. What I'm telling business people, that the only thing that I control is myself. I can't control anyone else. I can't control the economy. I can't control the market. It's going up and down. Actually, it's going down and down. if you look at the numbers, the world has, I think, an average of 6 or 7%, minus 6 or 7% growth is being predicted for 2020, which is, it's like if the 2009 financial problem was this much, this great lockdown is this much. That's the difference. So there'll be a wave. It's not just the virus itself, but the impact of shutting down everything is terrible for the world economy. And so if I'm confused, I'll just be swept aside like anyone else. There are two things that I can be at this moment: a victim or a protagonist. I can be carried by the winds of change because I don't have any understanding of anything, or I can move to a position of understanding. And in that position of understanding, I can see better, I can understand better, I can decide better, whatever I have to decide. There isn't an easy answer, but I know, for example, I think things will become worse in the short term. They will become much worse than they are, unfortunately. In the long term, I believe things will become better. But if I make a conscious effort to improve my understanding of myself and my inner qualities, and start to invest in those inner qualities, and I start to improve my relationships with those people around me, the ones that, are part of my life, then I will be better able to face that difficult future and better able to embrace the better future that I'm saying is going to happen in the long term. And if then someone who doesn't do anything, and even then, independent of whether the future will be worse or better, if I make that effort to improve my understanding myself, my relationship with the divine, my relationship with others who are important to me, then that will help me now itself, especially in those difficult moments when I need to take a tough decision. Okay?
Yes. So again, it says like, as you said, do we really want to become a victim or what? So in that sense, to remain, not to be a victim. So how can I remain more positive in these situations? Like,
No, that's what I'm just saying, I have inner qualities which are part of me. It's my property. For example, how difficult it is to take the sweetness out of sugar. Sweetness is part of what sugar is. So if I understand that peace is part of what I am, you can't take my peace away unless I allow it to happen, So if I need to develop that sort of faith in me, I can lose everything. I had this realization the other day. As a spiritual being going through this human experience, I, as the spiritual being, continue. So if I lose everything, everything around me stops. Even if I lose the body, I will continue to exist, and I will still have these qualities. So, that sort of inner faith, that sort of inner stability is absolutely important. I've been experiencing, for example, I'm in a part of the country here in Brazil. I'm just in our retreat center, actually. I had to come down to the town to do this transmission. That's why you could hear the traffic outside. But generally, it's such a peaceful place, and it's like a paradise in a way. But I understand that most people are not in that sort of situation. So I've been trying to experience with things like more simplicity, more consciousness while I do very simple activities, even walking from one place to the other. Instead of rushing, I've started to walk more consciously each step. So I'm really enjoying that experience, and I face the things as they come to me. If I have that inner strength, I won't be pushed aside by a situation and thereby become a victim. I will be able to decide what to do. But the difference, the word protagonist, which is the opposite of victim, protagonist is from Greek. It means the one who agonizes first. So agony is a Greek word. So the one who agonizes first, the one who faces things. So I have stability that I can develop. I have peace that I can develop. I have love that I can develop further. So I have qualities. I may not have other things, but I've got these qualities, and they should be enough to get through the different scenes and situations. And there is a relationship between me and whatever happens as well. The reality that happens to me is not accidental. It's not accidental. There's a connection between how I am and what happens. So if I start to improve how I am, I will also improve what happens to me. And that way I don't have to be a victim ever. Even in the most difficult of circumstances, you always find some people having victories. So let me be one of those ones. Anything else?
Yes, the question is how to go back to the true inner child with this tough daily transaction and still be as what life made us with the daily layers around this child.
Well, I think we have to, that's the equation for all of us, isn't it? I have to be in this world, do what I have to do, but also understand that there's another dimension to my life, which I need to cultivate. And so this coming and going between this inner reality and the external reality, that's exactly what spiritual effort is about. Spiritual endeavor is exactly that. Not becoming stuck in the mud of circumstances and not going too far into the clouds that I lose myself. I have to have the balance between doing practical things. And if you just look around you can make a list. I'll give an example. Just everyone who's on this transmission, think of a situation that you need to resolve, a specific situation you need to resolve. Okay, next step. If you were a reporter and you were reporting very objectively about the situation, what would you write? What would be the description? Absolute objective description. Okay, then you can do that. Maybe you can do this for homework. The next thing, what is the highest feeling that I can have? What is the best feeling that I can have in relation to this situation? Not without feeling, unhappy, disturbed, or, upset. But what is the highest feeling that the situation is okay, what's the highest feeling that I can have? At least have an idea of what that highest feeling is. And the third step, okay, which is pretty obvious, what do I need to be? What do I need to be? This situation is telling me be tolerant or be patient, be more understanding, be more loveful. What's the situation telling me? So these are the, if you do that sort of exercise, you can get around almost any situation. Stop trying to control others. Stop trying to change others. Stop trying to change the situation. Change yourself. That's the big message if you want to stop being a victim. Okay?
Yes, I think you answered the other question also. It came meantime. How to implement in daily life of these qualities. So this steps really helps us to take into that process of implementing. So, yes, I thank you very much for joining us all the way from Brazil. We are in hot and you're in cold. In that way, I would like to thank you very much. And I would also like to thank Embassy of India, Muscat, and, and His Excellency Manu Mahavar, Ambassador of India to Oman, for organizing this platform. So where many people are taking benefit of this being at home. Thank you for being with us. Take care, keep safe, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, everyone, and all the best. I hope keep healthy and keep peaceful. Okay. Bye-bye.